everyone. My name is Alec O'Sullivan. I'm the policy lead at DECA, and I'd just like to thank our sponsors, TRM Labs, SwiftX, XDC Network, OKX, and CoinSpot. Couldn't be possible without them. So Europe is a patchwork of regulatory approaches, each country bringing its own priorities and pace to the digital asset conversation. In this panel, we turn to France, Poland, and Italy to hear how these jurisdictions are shaping their markets and what innovations are emerging along the way. Moderated by Stephen Pettigrove from Piper Alderman, we are joined by André Casterman, who brings deep expertise from the European banking and tokenization space, and Maximilian Marenbach, who has been driving digital asset initiatives across Central and Eastern Europe. Together, they will shed light on how these three countries are influencing the broader European landscape and what lessons may be carried forward as regulations continue to evolve. Over to you, Stephen.
Thanks very much, Alec, and thanks to DECA as well for convening this great event today. Obviously very timely as well with the news from Treasury and the government this morning on the release of the paper, which I know everyone's very interested and curious about and will no doubt be the subject of discussion in the days ahead. However, now we're talking about Europe, and we're talking about a continent where regulation is already in place for digital assets, and that's principally in the sort of crypto asset services or trading space. But there's a bunch of other interesting things going on in Europe as well. We're very lucky to have André and Max with us. I'll let them introduce themselves in a second, but they, between them, cover a whole range of aspects of what's going on in Europe. And I know they both have a keen interest in Australia as well. So Max, I might start with you first. Would you like to introduce yourself briefly?
Yeah, thank you, Stephen, and thank you, DECA, for having me. I think this is going to be a great panel, and the day has been very, very entertaining and interesting already so far. My name is Maximilian. I'm the co-founder and COO of Damisa. We are a cross-border payments platform that allows merchants to collect money globally and to disperse and send money globally. We also have escrow-like programmable settlement layer for merchants that want to receive and hold stablecoins on their escrow. And we work with merchants across different ecosystems, different industries in Europe and soon in Australia. And yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Thanks, Max. André, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, Stephen. Hi, and hi, Maximilian. So thanks indeed to DECA for organizing this. Very insightful and very, very timely, as there are indeed so many developments in around the crypto space and the policymakers looking at each other and influencing each other. So my name is André Casterman. I've been in the trade finance and transaction banking space for the last 35 years. Initially at Swift, where I have been trained to work with banks, which require special skills, and in particular when it comes to innovating with banks. And since 10 years, I'm indeed helping a number of tech companies on the go-to-market side and product strategy with regards to trade finance innovations. Trade finance, as we will discuss today, is a very interesting space because it's quite of a niche space, but it's very interesting because it attracts new entrants, and those new entrants want to take advantage of all the topics we are discussing at this conference in terms of tokenization and new policy developments. But we'll get deeper into that in a second.
Great, thank you, André. Maximilian, I might start with you. So you've obviously had a sort of an interesting journey because you've been navigating regulation in a number of different jurisdictions, namely Poland, Malta, and Australia, I believe. Could you tell us a little bit more about your journey in Europe in particular, and perhaps then we'll tease out some of the themes?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we at Damisa, we have a vast registration currently in Poland. And we decided consciously on Poland because for multiple reasons. A, it's a very, very active ecosystem, a very, very engaged ecosystem. You currently have several hundred registered VASPs in Poland that service a variety of different merchants, clienteles, niches, etc. We also chose Poland because of its great reputation in international finance, its good standing, which allows us very easily to partner with financial institutions across the globe. We have a very deep and knowledgeable talent pool in Poland. The tech talent pool in Poland is second to none from my personal experience. Of course, the situation in Poland is a little bit in a waiting pattern, so to say, because we're still waiting for a MiCA regulation to be ratified and put into action. So what we have done on the Damisa side of things, from operational perspective, we're already operating under like as if we would have our MiCA license already. So we do everything in terms of background checks, etc. So like that as we would have to have. We're operating already on a MiCA level, essentially, just so that whenever the application window opens in Poland, which knock on wood, and we hope so will be anytime soon now in early Q4, is that we are going to be up and rolling in very no time, essentially.
And that experience of getting registered as a VASP in Poland, was that a lengthy process? Did you have kind of high touch interaction with the regulator? Interested in what that was like?
Yeah, so we had the position that we acquired a business in Poland. But from our experience with the regulators, with the KNF, the Financial Supervisor Authority, and the tax authorities in Poland, has been very positive so far, very engaging. Of course, like I said, they have multiple hundreds of VASPs under their registry, so they are quite, how to say it, familiar with this setup, right? With this type of business, which is one of the reasons for us to set up shop there. Because as Andre probably can confirm, you don't necessarily always want to be the first one through a door, you know? So it's probably sometimes good to go into an ecosystem where there are already established players, established communication channels between business actors and the regulators, the authorities. And so we found all of this already in place in Poland. So that was very supportive environment, very encouraging environment for us to set up shop there.
And do you see Poland sort of going forward as a bit of a hub for you to service Europe as a whole?
Yeah, absolutely. For us, like I said, especially once the MiCA regime has been officially implemented in Poland, it will be a different game for us, but especially also because of the talent there. The number of talented developers and non-developers roles, but who have an understanding about cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, the pool of talent is very, very deep, very deep. And something that, of course, a startup like ourselves, that's very beneficial for us because, as you can imagine, as a startup, or scale up, you have 6,000 things on your plate, right? And you might not have time to individually train everyone from zero up, right? So having someone, even in, let's say, a finance team, a marketing team, who has a deep understanding of cryptocurrencies or interest in cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, it's invaluable for us because it frees up resources on our end to focus on other aspects of the business.
Makes sense. And I think in our previous sessions, you've mentioned that you're pursuing a licensing in Malta as well.
Correct.
What additional aspect does that give, sort of additional string to your bow, are you looking for there? And what's sort of the attraction to Malta in particular?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for us, of course, I cannot disclose too much because, of course, it's somewhat of the hidden secret sauce that we have, right? But for us, of course, we want to expand our product portfolio, right? Which means probably want to go into licensing regimes that are a little bit beyond traditional cryptocurrency licensing regimes. We wanted to go into an environment, again, that's very friendly to our ecosystem, that's very knowledgeable, that has an active interest in speaking to industry participants and has almost like an open door type of policy, right? Which Malta and other jurisdictions have had traditionally for a long time. And for us, it was important that we go into an ecosystem, into a country where we have that opportunity, that possibility to have an open, direct dialogue with the regulators, that we have a very supportive financial ecosystem as well, supported ecosystem, knowledgeable employee-based talent pool, right? People who know exactly, for instance, how to do something as benign as filing taxes properly for a company like ours. It sounds benign, but it's not. Those who have worked in the industry know that sometimes can be quite difficult, and finding people that have that knowledge, know exactly how to do it properly, that have received guidance from the tax authority on how to do it properly. That was one of the reasons why we decided to do it as well.
Makes sense. And look, as you were approaching this in different jurisdictions, did you have a massive sort of chart on the wall with 40 jurisdictions and a bunch of ratings, or was there a little bit more science to it than that? Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I mean, kinda. Yeah, it was maybe not like your usual big chart that we're drawing on or something like this. But we did quite a hefty level of analysis,
Yeah.
right? And it was always from the get-go. So Damisa was founded last year, and Europe and Australia were from day one our two pillars. So we had like this two-pronged attack. We set up everything in parallel, right? It's just that Europe moved a little bit faster at this point.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the European jurisdictions, you know, you have quite a lot of options there theoretically. And it depends a little bit on what is that you want to do, what your preferences are, what your business priorities are, right? Do you want someone who's very open, understandable? Do you want someone who just has more like a risk adverse approach? Do you want someone who has done it before, or do you want to be the first one through the door? Do you want a jurisdiction that has, let's say, native English as the business language, a jurisdiction language and everything? Do you want to go into different route? So a lot of different options on the table. And like you mentioned, Stephen, we did quite a hefty list of analysis of almost all EEA countries, to be quite honest. Because again, if you put anything in Google or ChatGPT, or you can go crazy, and you get 6,000 different results with 5,000 different answers, and you're as smart as before, right? You know nothing, right? Really. So you need to start really digging deep, and then circle it and narrow it down to 5 jurisdictions, then 3, then 2, and then at some point you say, okay, you know what? Based on our indications, based on all the 50 different parameters that we've used for our analysis, that's the most likely to hit, and that was our decision-making process. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. I mean, as an observer, what's been really interesting to watch, I think, is people choosing different hubs, not necessarily saying, you know, everyone going to one. So obviously there's a little bit of horses for courses there in terms of working out that whole range of factors, regulation being one, but, you know, as you say, talent, you know, understand the regulatory kind of, I suppose, willingness to work with you, those sorts of questions all come into play.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you might have companies that come from certain parts of the world and that might prefer a jurisdiction that's a little bit closer to them culturally, right? And everything. But luckily for us, we have a very diverse founder base, let's say, a lot of different Europeans as well, with different insights. So we were in a fortunate position that we went into quite objectively into that search process.
Great. We might change pace now. I'm keen to unpack with you, Andre, a couple of other things bubbling away in Europe. So you've been, I think, a big supporter or and done a lot of work in the electronic transaction record space in relation to the model law. I know that there's a number of developments working their way through the system in the UK, France, and other jurisdictions in Europe. Are you able to give us a little bit of an update on where that, I suppose, 2 things actually, where that's at, but also why it matters?
Yes, certainly, Stephen. So basically, the trade finance is still very paper intensive when it comes to exchanging information and documents. And the reason why some flows have not been able to move to digital form, digital media like PDFs or data streams, is because some of those documents are title documents. You know, the ones who holds the documents, who possesses the documents, is actually the ones who will collect the money, or the one who owns the goods on a ship. So this is why in trade finance we're talking about title documents. We're talking about negotiable instruments, because those documents can be traded, and those documents are referred to like promissory notes, bills of exchange, and bills of lading, and a few others that are less important, like warehouse receipts. So they represent value. And this is why trade finance has not been able to move those documents to a digital form, as I said, because we needed to change the law before new technologies could be utilized. So what happened over the last 15 years? 2010 is where actually many things came to life on the techno side, with Bitcoin, crypto technologies, the underlying layer ones, Ethereum a few years later. So the technicians have been developing those technologies to manage value on the internet. And we talk about the Internet of Value versus the Internet of Information. And in parallel, the lawyers in trade finance have identified the need for countries around the world to change their legal systems in order for those documents to move from paper to electronic. And you really need to go into the legal systems and analyze the gap and the changes required to enable new technologies, whether it's blockchain or another one, to digitize those promissory notes, bills of exchange, and bills of lading. So all of this has happened in parallel between 2010 and 2019, approximately. And we know what happened in the crypto space. Gradually more users, more understanding, more acceptance by regulators about the whole crypto capabilities. And on the trade and legal side, we had indeed the UN delivered in 2017 the model law for electronic transferable records, as you said. And electronic transferable records represent all of those title documents that are used in trade and trade finance to exchange payment obligations or title to goods being shipped in a container ship or bulk ship. So used for commodities or other types of goods. So 2017 was a major milestone. 2019, the initial countries started to change their laws, like Bahrain. We just had a panel talking about Bahrain as well, ADGM, Singapore, and then we worked also on the UK in 2023, and more recently in France in 2024. That means that all of those countries had got their lawyers focused on how to change the country or the jurisdiction for the ADGM legal framework to align with the model law for electronic transferable records and to enable the digitization of those title documents and negotiable instruments. We have more countries doing the same, like Germany, like US for the New York law, and many others like Thailand and so on. So here we are now at a point where trade finance, which is still very paper intensive, has found out an excellent use case for tokenization, because the token technologies combined with electronic signatures enable for those title documents to be digitized in a way that is acceptable to the lawyers and to the courts in the future. So getting those documents legally enforceable in court is the end objective, because otherwise your electronic record has no value besides representing something that you can't monetize in the future. So that has been basically the reason why we got those two streams, technology developments, blockchains, and MLETR meeting thanks to the UN model law for electronic transferable records, MLETR, and its implementation in various countries.
Super interesting. And in terms of, obviously, we've now got that framework, if you like, for recognizing these records in digital form. Is there a technical sort of standards piece to this as well, in terms of regulators agreeing on particular platforms or the way in which these records will be digitized and can be exchanged? Is that part of the analysis?
So usually the regulators are indeed technology on this particular topic of trade digitization and alignment with MLETR are technology agnostic.
Okay.
However, so they will not recommend blockchain to be used, but they will try to push for interoperable systems and reliable systems. So what happened in France specifically, so once we delivered the law in June 2024, approved by the government, just before the parliament was dissolved by the president in June 2024. So very good timing. We then continued to work with lawyers to develop an application decree to be specific about how technologies should be certified. And I think the French market stands out here because I have a global perspective on and view on all of those MLETR legal developments. And France has become, since last month, when this decree was approved by the government, has become the most advanced regulation, with including an application decree around reliable systems. Because indeed, lenders, banks, non-bank lenders will wonder, which technology can I use? How will the court recognize that this piece of information, electronic piece of information, is indeed enforceable or not. So we need a certification, like a bit you have the certification of technologies for electronic signatures to make them valid. It's the same logic. But electronic signatures are not sufficient for digitizing title documents. You need you need to be able to identify the ownership of the document and to support also transfer of ownership and of the electronic document. So blockchain is needed, or other technology in the future, but France has been the first one to develop a very comprehensive, detailed framework to identify the applicable certification schemes. There could be many, to help the market, to guide the market in selecting technologies. So it's still technology agnostic, but the guidance is very detailed. And I think lots of other countries applying the civil law, like Morocco and Egypt, but that's a personal bet, will be relying on this framework. They will not try to develop another one. But that's a personal view, of course, like most of the ideas I share here.
And how does this play out in the market? Are we likely to see these digitized trade finance records moving first between those countries that have adopted the MLETR? Is that the likely way in which it plays out?
Yeah, what we have seen with the ETD Act, which is the English law aligned with MLETR since 2023, is that the English law is indeed the main one for international trade. Next is the New York law, and then you have indeed French law, German law, and others, Singapore law, and so on. But those UK English law, French law can be used in any country that is recognizing indeed the valid electronic records for negotiable instruments. So legal guidance is required before using electronic means to digitize those instruments outside of the countries like UK and France, where those jurisdictions have been aligning with MLETR. But so legal guidance is needed, but some countries we have already done transactions under English law in Africa, in Kenya, in Belgium as well, in Latin America as well with the UK. So it's not limited to those countries. Those legal systems are definitely adopted by other lenders, other banks and non-bank lenders outside of UK and France. And definitely for the English law, it is the legal standard in trade finance, basically.
Very interesting. In the time we have left, I want to touch on a couple of other topics as well, stablecoins being one, and real-world asset tokenization, which, I mean, trade finance in a sense is an example of that. Max, I know your business is dealing in stablecoins, I imagine, all the time. This has been one interesting aspect of the MiCA regime has been this kind of I suppose split. I know USDT hasn't kind of got through there in terms of its recognition, and that's caused some businesses to look beyond Europe in terms of how they can continue to offer services in relation to USDT. How are you sort of seeing developments in that space in Europe? And I suppose as we enter a licensed framework for stablecoins, how that's going to impact your business?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question, Stephen. So for us at Damisa, we pretty much have a stablecoin agnostic stance, which means we don't, prefer one or the other. We go where the flow is. We go where the demand is, whether it's a stablecoin or even on a blockchain level, right? With regards to MiCA, you see a lot of new, very solid euro stablecoin issuers coming up that have been supported by governments, by big banks, StableR, for instance, AllUnity, the second one, right? Probably there are 20 more. And of course, in Australia, we have several very, very promising projects in AUDD, AUDF, AUDM now as well in the pipeline. For us as a payment business, again, we are agnostic. What our goal is, we want our merchants to have the cheapest, fastest, easiest, smoothest way to send funds from A to B. That's our thesis, right? And everything else just falls under it. So what means by that is we are already in active discussions with multiple, let's call it local or non-USD stablecoin issuers, also in Latin America and Southeast Asia as well. And we are going to be partnering with several of those. But then again, for us, because we have the merchant as the priority number one in mind, it needs to make sure that it's liquid enough, smooth enough. There's no point in us, because we're running a B2B business, Stephen, right? For us, there's no point in partnering with a stablecoin that has $100,000 liquidity in the pool. We're going to kill that with one transaction. We're gonna get slippage to death right out of the gate, you know. So, and this is something that, of course, we have to be very mindful. And that's we're telling stablecoin issuers all the time who want to work with us, is that, hey, happy to work with everyone, happy to integrate everyone that has a licensed, reputable background, of course, like all of them have really by now, especially in Europe. But they need to make sure that they have enough liquidity, because just issuing for a stablecoin, just for having a stablecoin for the sake of having a stablecoin, makes no sense, right? And if there's not enough liquidity on a, let's say, Euro to Euro X stablecoin, or AUD to AUDX stablecoin, then I can just go AUD into USDT or Euro into USDC and do my swap there if it comes from another asset, right? There's heaps and enough of liquidity there for me to get that done very smoothly. So this is just something that local stablecoin issuers is going to have to be mindful of.
Are we seeing, obviously, the US dollar denominated stablecoins have kind of been predominant in the crypto market for a long time. Do you think the sort of MiCA pathway is we're going to see a bit of an emergence of euro denominated stablecoins? Interested in your views on that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't need to think I know, right? Because we already have like the first merchants now that actively want to hold a certain balance treasury with us in a euro denominated stablecoin. Right now we work with Euro C on this. So, and this is not something that came from us, it came from the merchant side. They asked us, hey, can we start doing business with you on the Euro C side of things? And we said, oh, sure, we added, right? So it's actively happening already. Right, and I'm pretty sure that now with the emergence of Australian dollar stablecoin, we will see a similar setup here in Australia.
Looks like the Grim Reaper is karma. We might not have much more time left. If I've got time for one more question, I just want to tie it back to trade finance.
Go for it, Steve.
There's clearly a bit of an interaction here between digitizing trade finance and stablecoins. I just want to give you the floor just for maybe a minute, if I can, just to talk about that. I mean, are these two developments kind of working in parallel, and are we going to see a more increasing adoption on the trade finance side because we're going to see an emergence of regulated stablecoins in Europe?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the first level in trade finance is DMLETR, digitizing the documents and using blockchain for tracking and validating. The next one is moving the money, because once we have a bill of exchange or promise to pay signed, the goal is to deliver the money. And that's where the stablecoin use case as a regulated use case jumps in. And then the third one, which I see many originators, new lenders coming into the trade market and filling the trade finance gap looking at, is the RWA tokenization, issuing tokenized investment products. And of course that is also a highly regulated stablecoin, because you're raising debt to fund your clients, the SMEs usually, and giving back some yield, of course.
Well, it's certainly a very exciting time, and to see these different, I suppose, innovations that have been in some ways tracking in parallel, starting to converge a little bit, I think is extremely exciting. Alec, are we at time?
We are, yes.
Thank you. Well, I'd just like to say a quick thank you to Andre and Max. You've been great panelists, and it's been very interesting for my part, and hopefully for the audience as well, to hear a little bit about your respective journeys and insights from Europe. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Max, Andre, and Stephen.